Okay, good evening, everybody. This is the March 1st, 2016 meeting of the Winthrop Town Council. This is being televised, and it's being recorded and will be shown again on WCAT. So I'll call this meeting to order. So this is probably the first time in history that the council has met on a Super Tuesday.
Yes.
We're going to find out if we'll ever do it again. The first thing is that our council clerk, Denise, isn't here. So I'm going to probably do things like take the roll call and whatever other things I have to do to keep the meeting moving. So let's start with the roll call. I'll find my page here somewhere. I think there's a certain order she likes to go.
Right somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I don't know where it is. I just looked at it. Anyway, well, let's go through it. Councilor Aikman?
Here.
Councilor Callan?
Present.
Councilor Boncory?
Here.
Councilor Del Vento?
Present.
Councilor Barone?
Present.
Councilor Bobayagi?
Present.
Vice President Lettieri?
Yeah.
And Councilor President Bob Driscoll present. So we're good. Let's take a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting on February 16th. Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No opposition. So this meeting on March 1st, we were actually going to have a number of motions. Two of them pertain to zoning. And I learned, and we'll blame this on the new guy on the block, but I learned that, I don't know if anyone knows this, it's not legal to have public hearings on the date of a primary if the public hearing regards zoning. So we are not having the motions that are the public hearing on the zoning issues that we had originally intended to have. We do have other public hearings, two other public hearings that we will begin right now. So the first public hearing is regarding the debt exclusion vote that we discussed at our last meeting. At the last meeting, Councilor Lettieri exercised his privilege to defer that discussion to this meeting, and we also agreed to have a public hearing on this. So I'm going to read the motion as it's going to, if it passes, it's going to be on the ballot. So let me just read that, and then we'll open up the public hearing. I'll open the public hearing now on that. Let me first read this. And the motion is, shall the town of Winthrop be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bond issue in order to pay the balance of the costs of the Millerfield-Lewis Lake project, including tide gate improvements, dredging, expansion, and stormwater storage within the drainage area of Lewis Lake, and further, including removal of existing facilities and the design, permitting, construction, and equipping of new track and field and related facilities at Miller Field, including all incidental and related costs. So that will be the motion, that will be the question that's on the ballot should this pass this evening. So I'm going to open it up to any of the folks in the public who would like to speak on this. So if you do, what it's asked is just rise, state your name, and I think also, if there are a lot of people here, everybody should get a chance to speak. If everybody could try to limit their comments to maybe like 5 minutes or something, and try to avoid repeating things that others have said, unless you feel really strongly that you need to say it again.
Precinct. Name and precinct.
Name and precinct too, I'm sorry. So.
Hi, my name is Jim Fabiano, precinct number 2. I personally feel that that the April 12th date is a good date for Millerfield. I think it should be put on the ballot. I think the community should vote if now the town has done their work, and we should let them vote. I'm also part of a committee that has been put together that's in favor of Millerfield project, and we voted, and we feel, and we want to recommend that an April 12th date is also a good date. It's time for the community to vote on this, and if they want it, they want it. If they don't, they don't. But we deserve that right to have that vote. There was one other thing. Is there a possibility we could have the CFO explain our last quarterly tax bill about a debt exclusion, how it didn't properly show the actual tax increase? It kind of showed it as a double. If we're talking about debt exclusions, if we had a moment, if that's possible.
Is that
Just
something?
quickly.
So it's because 4 quarters worth of payments were placed in 2 quarters. So since it wasn't on the first 2 quarter payments, it's not as though that is the amount that would have been for each quarter. So the annual amount was the same. It's just it was paid over 2 quarters instead of 4, so it appears higher.
So it appears double, correct?
Right.
Just because there was a lot of confusion, a lot of people talking about it, and we're talking about a debt exclusion. I just want
Yeah.
to make sure everybody gets that,
Yeah,
understands.
I think that's a good point, and I, like everybody who pays real estate tax, I examined my own, and I came up with what you just explained, which are the 3 components. There's a component that's related to the cost of our properties going up, which is about 3%. There's a cost related to the debt exclusion, which is about 7%. And then there's a cost, this is my bill, there's a cost associated with it, which is really the catch-up from July through the rest of the fiscal year, which didn't happen in the first 2 quarters, and that represented almost 10% of my bill.
That's correct, because the first 2 quarter bills are estimated based on the prior year's rate, because we haven't set the tax rate yet, which is typically done in the fall or early winter.
Yep.
And especially since the school budget, the school project, the high school, middle school project, as far as we know, and unless there's something drastic, is going to come in under budget, and we saved over $8 million in expected interest costs. So we just want to make sure that's understood within the community.
Good.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr.
Anthony Evangelista, Precinct 4. I just have one question. What happens if you take a vote and it's a nay? No, and another is a no vote.
If there is a no vote, this vote needs to pass by a two-thirds margin.
I understand that. But
And so
I'm saying-
if there's not 6 votes for
No,
this,
I understand that.
it'll stop right, that'll be the end of this, and it can come up again at any time.
It can come up again at any time.
It can.
So we continue on. If that happens, and the next vote, let's say, it'll come up again, no doubt about it. So let's say it comes back after the fact that the school will be built soon, within, what, a year or so, or sooner than that, am I correct?
It'll open
All
next
right, now,
September.
if Miller Field has to be, this vote has to be postponed, one, you have to be fiscally responsible. Second, if it doesn't pass, okay, then the school will be built, and Miller Field will not be taken care of. The football field season, it's not only football, there's track and other athletic events that takes place in the high school itself. So myself, I'm back there any longer, but I would suggest, and I agree with this gentleman here to my right, that it should be passed this evening and a yes vote.
Thank you.
That's my personal opinion.
Good, thank you. Sir? Mr. Dimes?
Mr. Dimes, I'm now of Precinct 4. Come here tonight because what the major project that you're talking about, of course, is Northfield, which, believe it or not, the same troubles that you're faced with today, I was faced with many, many years ago. The need for the field, there's no question, it has to be improved. But being a professional in the background I've come from, to decide that you might want to put a 2.5 override project out 6 weeks from today, a project that is going to be so involved in the problems that are faced down there from water table and so forth. The field has to be completely done. Can the field belong there? What I'm trying to get across to you is, I don't see why it isn't even critical to even think at this stage where you're going to go and put on the same ballot as a special election. It has nothing much to do with what we're talking about here tonight. Having the people now faced with 2 problems. We're going to vote for, we're going to vote for this. This is a very particular case that's coming up once in many, many years now. It's been deferred, major town meetings going and wouldn't give the funds to do what we wanted to do at Village Field. I feel that it needs study. It's gotta be told to the people, now bear in mind, the people of this community, after a very long and intelligent presentation, voted to let the town build an $80 million school. As I stand here tonight, I have no idea, yet 6 weeks from today, like everybody else, will be asked to vote without any background. But why? How much is it gonna cost? Now, believe me, the field has to be done. We've gotta face the facts that we gotta improve this area. But it does not belong, in my mind, to be paired off on a general election or a special election just because it moves it up a little. The football season can go on, they can still play games, it's gonna be no different than it was last fall. So I'm standing here tonight saying that this project, or this motion, should not be voted favorably, but should be voted down, so that the proper input by the town can then give to the townspeople what it's all about, is intelligently done, and maybe sometime in September, October, November, we'd all come forth and we vote for it.
Thank you, Mr. Dimes. Mr. Noonan?
Thank you. Had an opportunity to speak here at the last council meeting a couple weeks ago. I think those 2 weeks, I don't know if much of you had the same reaction I did from people outside of this meeting, but a lot of people have opinions on it. I think that's apparent on both sides of the conversation. That's a good thing. I think that's a good thing for the town. It's a good thing for town government. People are paying attention, people are involved. In order for us to move this project forward, whether it goes or it doesn't go, it needs to be voted on in this next election. We think we're going to have a good voter turnout on both sides. And you know, look, I'm in favor of the field. I have 3 boys. I have a vested interest in this project moving forward. But you know, I'm also a coach that coaches in youth football and participates, and we travel to many other destinations that have new fields that provide a sense of pride to the town. And it helps recruit people to new destinations, you know, whether it be through business in town or real estate for people moving. So it's all related in my mind. What I would hate to see is it continues to get delayed and inaction happens, much like other past projects in this town, where things for a variety of reasons don't move forward. In my mind, let the town vote. If the town votes it down, they vote it down. But any action to hold it back is just, it's political vitriol. That's all that is. There's enough people here on both sides of the conversation that have opinion on it. And for it not to move forward, I think would be a shame. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Noonan. Ma'am, just state your name and precinct, please.
Pat McGee, Precinct 3. I coached track here for 39 years. And I'll tell you something, I would not want to see this go down the tubes. We need the football field, because I love football. We need all the sports. I watched a track program that has gone down to practically nothing. And it's a shame because it was one of the best programs in the school by far. And consequently, I don't know, to me, this whole thing, this track, football, everything like that, it's for the children in the school. The kids are so important nowadays. There's so many distractions. You see the thing about kids dying because of drugs. We've got a nice little town, but we had a very successful town in all sports, and then suddenly the track started going downhill. A lot of years ago, I was able to get $12,000 to have that track done over. I went before a group of gentlemen and I presented the case, and that's what you see now is the rest of it. But for $12,000, we had the track done over, and it was great. And the average team that I had, like for spring, would be 35, 40 kids. We have kids that went to the States all the time. They went to everything. But I'm just talking about my sport. The other sports are so important now. They brought in some new sports. But to see the program that I loved and worked for, to see it go down so badly because there's no place to go. But even when it was bad, when I was coaching, I found spots. We did. We found spots. But to put it off is totally, totally wrong. I mean, this is for your grandchildren, your children, not my grandchildren, they're all graduated now. But, I mean, it's just, it's a sad situation when I read in the paper that a kid threw the shot put and they said, oh, okay, how far did he throw it? And I'm looking at it. I mean, we've had a school record of 61 feet 4 inches done by a young man, what, 35 years ago?
Randy Hurt?
Huh?
Randy Hurt? Was it Randy Hurt?
No, it wasn't Randy. No, it was Mike Brennan,
Oh, my friend.
61-4. And I'm looking now, and I'm reading the paper, and I literally get very upset about it. Because not only, as I said, it's not only track, it's everything. You've got a wonderful hockey rink. That's great. But what about the football field? And what about the field out there that can be used for all the other sports? So, and, you know, I'm getting up there in age and everything, and I mean, who's to say I'm even going to be around the next couple of years? I don't know.
Oh, you will.
But the fact is, it's so important. I was a town meeting member years and years ago, and things would come up, and people would start voting them down. And did you read one of them?
Oh, yeah. I remember my kids would do.
I always voted for everything. I didn't care. Money isn't important. What's important is the students, the athletes, the non-athletes. I mean, on my track team, I had 3 special needs kids, and all they could do was just about throw the shot put. Not well, but they came. When I took them on the team, they came, they participated, and they got a varsity letter. That was a big thing for them. And Frankie Fabiano, there was great. Frankie would even come to my practices after he graduated and show them how to throw the shot put. He had the best form. But, I mean, that's what this is what we're voting for. We're voting for kids. I mean, okay, so there's people that will come and walk the track sometimes, but you're going to see all these. I'm tired of losing out to charter schools and to Catholic schools, and I'm a Catholic. But I don't like it when I see St. Mary's. I know they recruit, and I know some of these other Catholic schools. They recruit because we've got good athletes here, and it's not right. If we have this beautiful hockey rink and everything like that, then let's do the rest. Let's go.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. McGee. Anybody else who has not been heard yet?
Hi, Kathleen Capuccio, 49 Waldemar. I think I'm precinct 2, could be precinct 5, not sure. I was very involved with FAB and many others in getting the debt exclusion voted on favorably for the new middle high school. At that time, you know, we had a lot of information. You know, we had plans and specs and, you know, spreadsheets and everything else to give to people. You know, I feel that there was a lot of, we had a lot of information to provide the voter to have an informed vote. I have not been involved, frankly, because of other political things I've been involved in. I have not been that involved in this process. I'm a lifelong Winthrop resident, for those of you that probably one that doesn't know me. I have 3 children, 7 and 11. Millerfield absolutely needs to be redone. There's no question about it. I've heard, you know, as I've tried to, you know, talk to different people over the past week, is, you know, and I'm also a community activist. Where does the public activist, a FAB, and all those that do everything. And then also the role of the town as a government and as the representative of us come together to forge a great project and to have things come to fruition. And I've heard from different people over the past week is, Kathleen, we don't have enough information. We don't know what's going on and, kind of who's running the ship and who's providing this information. And I know this isn't the forum a lot of times where the council likes to respond or people like to respond. But I would like to know, and again, and I mean this, I can be fresh, and some of you know, I don't mean this actually in an indignant way. What is the town's role then in whether it be feasibility, whether it be parking studies? So it's not just Jim Fab's idea to have Miller Project done. I believe, yet I've heard different things, quite frankly. Has the town been involved in the feasibility of this? What has the town already expended for resources? We have the Lewis Lake project, which I know is different, but there is a commingling potentially of savings of permitting money. And again, and I say this from someone, frankly, I usually like to know the answers. I don't. But I just feel that, and maybe you have, the town council needs to speak, and the town manager, and I believe it's Mr. Gordon, I'm sorry, is to speak, I think it's Mr. Gordon, sorry. Sorry.
They all look alike.
Sorry. I should have just said you, sir. But I think what happens a lot in this town, community activism and volunteers and citizens doing what, working hard, whether it be for Deer Island, whether it be for whatever it is, they're a separate entity. And then we have the town council. And there needs to be somehow a joining of the forces, or at least a collaboration. Because I know for me, aside from what I know from my friends, I would just love to know what you all think, and what money has been expended by the town, and what you have done. And if you don't want to put this on the special ballot for the 12th, what do you need to get it on the next ballot? Why are you not ready to put it on this one? And what do you need for the next one? But we need to talk. And I know, in these political circumstances, people don't want to talk. We need you to talk. We need you to say, this is I heard the other day, Mr. Boyajian, Rich, said he had a concern about X. Let's talk about it. Let's say what our concerns are. But to hide behind anything and just say yes or no is not the right way to go. Let's have a conversation, please.
Thank you.
My name is Joe Murphy, 103 Sargent Street, I think it's precinct 3. I share a lot of the sentiments around the upgrade of Miller Field, and I believe it should go on the ballot. Speaking in regards to the hesitation that I've been put forth to me around artificial turf, I own a business for the last 15 years dealing with artificial turf. For the last 8 years, I've been a member of the Synthetic Turf Council, resident of Winthrop for the last 14 years, and I have 4 boys that would be prospectively playing on that field. Just to speak on behalf of that hesitation, I have no hesitation whatsoever, given my industry knowledge around the product at all whatsoever around putting that product into the field if that was one of the options. I also don't have any vested interest, and I'm not involved in the project by any means at all. So I just want to share that. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Are there any other comments?
I just
Mr.
want to comment on
Evangelista.
This is Big E. This is Big E. I remember her 1980. My son and daughter used that field. There was always a problem of getting a new roof, no glass. I remember a gentleman from Melrose that his ashes was actually over Miller's Field because he was so dedicated. But my son and daughter ran the track, played football, and it was always a problem, and nothing was ever got through. Someone said about committees, etc., and no follow through. If you're going to do something, follow through. And now my grandchildren, there's 5 of them, will be using that Miller Field. And why procrastinate? You know, do something. Just do it and accept it and go on. You can't stay in the middle of a road and get run over. You gotta make a decision.
Thank you.
Elephants in the bottom.
No, not at all. 3/4. Yes.
Peter Taviano, Precinct 5. The only thing that bothers me is we have to put Tanisha into a study. Study after study. Is it only a stall tactic to me?
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other comments, questions from the public? Then I'm going to open this up to the council.
I think Mr. McKenna is going to do the same thing I was looking for. I think there's a couple of people from the Northfield Committee here, which has been a very, very active committee. They've been meeting almost weekly, and there are some prominent members of the town. This has not been something that's not being worked on. There've been updates. We've done, I think in January, we had one at a council meeting on TV. But I want to get a quick update on what the committee's been doing the past couple months, as well as what we did the past 9 or 10 months.
Yeah, if I could, and forgive me, I won't stand over here because I think I'd rather talk to the room than have my back to you. I'm very proud of the work of this committee, and we've been thorough, very deliberate. Obviously, the issues of drainage and hydrology and the geology of the site are quite challenging. We did explore other sites in the town, but the geometry of this site works best for its present use as an athletic facility, with some considerable challenges, not the least of which is it was a former, and I think others can chime in on the history here better than I, but it's a salt marsh that was filled in. And it's linked hydrogeologically with Lewis Lake. And that's why all of that had to come together, because as we discovered through our permitting review, we would have been asked questions both upstream and downstream relative to the whole of the activities that are necessary to make the improvements here. So this was integrated as one project. We have spent roughly $200,000 on engineering thus far, a substantial sum, to understand this geology and to understand and how to put forth a recommendation to the community. The committee has been composed of Steve Calla as its chair, and members of the school department, members of the superintendent, the principal of the school, Sean Driscoll, was on the committee. We've had members of the golf course on the committee as an interested party, obviously. Myself, Joe Demilovitz has been on it, and we've had other folks. Conservation has been represented as well. So a number of stakeholders involved in understanding the science behind all of this, and it has been substantial, and we've learned a lot. What we've learned is groundwater is very important in this area of the town. In fact, we put monitoring wells throughout the area to understand just how impactful what the groundwater would be. And what we discovered was the steel pipes we put in the ground actually corroded after 30 days, which told us there's a lot of salinity going up and down here. So we had to, and our engineers at Woodard and Curran had to design with so many very complex issues in place, and they have made recommendations, did a thorough analysis of the canon of research out there, and they know what they're recommending is the right recommendation for the town, and the committee has put forward that recommendation. We've put into the council now a complete summary of the full scope of the project. We know essentially in a range of expense what the project will cost. What we recognize is that we need to raise the field. We need to approximately 2.5 feet, perhaps a little more, and put in place of the existing earth a fill that will drain, that's a lightweight fill that will drain much more effectively, because the last thing we want is a repeat of what happened with the rink. That we get a surface that over time does things we don't want it to do. We want it to be solid, firm, and a terrific playing surface for the town for many years to come. So the engineers have designed a whole underlay for the field. They've designed a field with extensive input from the schools on dimensional issues such as a regulation track that can host not just our own local meets, but state meets, that can accommodate.
You have to have 8 lanes for the state.
8 lanes, yep. That can accommodate all the varieties of track and field activities, and not just limited, but all of them, with a pit for jumping and throwing the shot and all the good things that folks want to see. So that's going to be there. We also, it's going to be a multi-purpose field where 6 different sports will be able to play on this field, not just football. This is, I know Sean, has been very sensitive to the issue and very concerned that everyone gets a shot at using this field, not just football. So I believe we're proposing, obviously a synthetic turf with sensitivity towards obviously what we use to hold the field down and making sure that it's the state of the art. As the gentleman mentioned, we're not going to put down anything that is known to be a problem, but we'll put down the right material for the community. Obviously, it needs, a very good set of bleachers and a good field house. We've negotiated an agreement with the North Shore Volk School, who will come in and build that building for free for this community. We're going to come in and supply the materials and the foundation, and they've agreed to make this their singular project for next year, which my hat's off to them for coming in and willing to do that for us. So it'll be a very impressive design. They're working on a selection of 3 designs for the committee to choose from. We'll provide that to anyone interested in seeing the design options for the field house. It'll have the press box and the nice looking scoreboard, and ultimately it'll be a place that you'll be very, very proud of. I think that we were very concerned about cost, obviously, but the more we spoke and the more we understood the complexities of the issues, the more we recognized we got to build an A1 facility to get the most value out of your tax dollars, and to make sure that we do it mindful of expense and mindful of trying to get it done on time and with a budget that's reasonable within the range of what our expectations were. Steve, do you want to add anything to my comments?
You touched upon everything. What I do want to reiterate is it is tied to the Lewis Lake Drainage Project. So it is timely. Excuse me. At the very least, we got to get the drainage in this field in place. It all has to tie in with that Lewis Lake Drainage Project, which is under grant scheduling. The money will go away. We have to finish those components of the tide gate, upstream drainage, and the field. That drainage has to be in place now. This is the time to get that stuff done. So, at a very minimum, if we choose not to put this thing on the ballot, we've got to at least get the drainage established.
I'll make all of this information available to anyone who wants it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other councilors who wish to comment? Yeah.
I wish to opine on this, please. I personally believe the time for half measures and inaction is over. We have the engineering report. We know what the numbers are going to look like. People have to remind themselves that there are 2 projects involved, and the time is now. To delay, with respect to Miller Field, to delay it even a few months is not really fair to the kids going to a brand new high school. I honestly believe that it's important for us as a community to get this done as quickly as we can. Thank you, Mr. President.
Council Bayashi?
So, Director Caller, do we, when you talked about the gate and the tide, the drainage, do we have the
the DPA's final on how deep it has to be and everything? Was that, okay, so that was...
We're going, just so you know, we have a meeting with the Conservation Commission going through our notice of intent with that respect to the tide gate, and a lot of the details will be settled on that, but as a matter of preliminary permitting conversation, that's been had with the DEP.
Good. So I guess when Kathleen had brought up, there was a lot of information out there that could be supplied to people for the school, and even before Mr. Fabiano did such a good job spearheading all of this, I mean, it was, there were months of information and whatnot, and a lot of information out there, and I think in defense of, you know, what's going on with the town, the information really just came out last week as far as, you know, what everything was settled on, and that, you know, that the rubber pellets wasn't going to be used, and that everything else that, and the cost of everything with the engineering and everything else that came out, and we found that. So it wasn't able to be really truly marketed or exposed to the public, and I guess my concerns with it though are that with 6 weeks, I am concerned about that. I'm also concerned that that between now and the special election, we have all of our budget talks. We've talked about the school and how they're asking for a budget increase. They're laying off kindergarten aides. I'm not sure that this is the best climate to do that in. And I also wonder, there's another special election after this one that would give you at least a few more, another month or so. That, after a preliminary, when is the general special election? Is that in May? I'm not sure when the date is.
I believe so.
So that would give more than 6 weeks. It would give, that, and because I think 6 weeks is, I'd also like to know from, and you might know more, is if this fails, if we put it on the ballot and it fails through, no lack of effort from Mr. Fabiano's team, but if it fails, what are our recourse then?
Ballot again.
We'll put it on the ballot again, okay? And how soon do we have to do that?
35-day window, so we'll lose the May election, and we'll have to then go
To a June election or something?
further out. You call a special election, or you wait for a general election, which would be November.
So one of the compromises might be looking at the one that is going to be scheduled in May already, that would give us more time. And I don't know if that's something that's, I think it's within the window that people want to strike fast, but it gives you more time to
To do what?
To do what? No, that's okay. That was a good question. To do what? Kathleen had just said there was a wealth of information before Mr. Fabiano's team even kind of took the field. So it would be to provide that information, to get that information, to do what Kathleen had said, the town would be able to do this more, which is what the committee that's finally got the information, they could start doing that. So that in more than 6 weeks, you've got that, and then you've also got Mr. Fabiano's group, so that you would have more time to do that. I think that, and it's still before, as you had said about with construction and things like that, delaying it to November. So if this fails in April, you've essentially sealed the fate till November, unless you call another special election. So would it be more reasonable to do it in May? I'm just asking questions, because as Kathleen said, let's talk about it, so that it's a few weeks later. I'm good.
I have a question and then a comment. My question is, what is the time frame for this project, and how shovel-ready is it? I mean, how long is it going to take, once we have a successful vote? What's the time frame until the kids are using the field?
Steve, you want to answer that question?
Yes. There is still permitting. The permitting is going to go for the rest of this calendar year. The engineering is under, it's very far along. Construction, you won't see construction start by the time the bid process goes out and we award the project. You won't see a construction until 2017. But all that other stuff has to happen. If you wait till November, you may not see construction till a lot further along. That's the best answer I can give you at this point.
Thank you.
I do know, if I just might add, we are on a strict calendar with the VOC to build a field house next school year. They have to plan now to get that on their agenda, because if we delay to November, it's a concern as to whether or not they'll schedule us to build next year. Just gonna put that out there.
What kind of,
I'm
sorry.
I have a comment, but
That's all, no, go ahead.
I'm very much in favor of the Miller Field project. I want to see it move forward as expeditiously as possible. My concern is that we just got the final budget estimate a few days ago, and that the committee needs at least a couple of weeks to really look that over in detail, make sure all of the questions are asked and answered, and that we have all of the information. I think it would be wise, for the town to spend a little bit more time fleshing out the details. And I think it would also be very wise, in order to have a successful vote for this project, to vet the project with the community, solicit community feedback, and incorporate that into our proposal. I certainly don't want to put this off. I want to see a new field there as soon as we possibly can, but I don't want to see it rushed. I want to see it done right, and I want to see us have a successful vote the first time around. And I'm concerned that 6 weeks isn't enough time to get that community feedback. My understanding from the town clerk is that including the vote in the special election April 12 is already going to cost the town another $11,000 to $13,000. So maybe it also makes sense to just wait until June, or have a special election early in the summer when the cost is going to be very similar. We don't necessarily need to wait until November, but I think we do need to vet the project with the community.
Thank you. Councilor Sanford?
The cost of the vote end of it, that's in labor terms, what would that be if we missed that opportunity?
Yeah, it's about $150 a square foot, at market rate, but that's not their cost.
Right.
Their cost is lower.
But if we had to do it
essentially,
on the private
round numbers, it would probably be in the $200,000 to $250,000 range in terms of labor.
So there's a savings potentially of
Yes.
$250,000 to
Yes.
$300,000. I've been very hesitant, and I've been waiting patiently to hear from the committee. A lot of you who I know timing's important. I know the engineering is going forward and has to go forward, as DPW director said, relative to the tide gates. So all of that information, all that data is ongoing, and it's happening as we speak. The other information, I have a great deal of faith that the committee is going to get that information out to the public. If the public is not happy with the information, if they don't think they have all the information they need to make an informed decisions, then they'll decide at the voting booth at that point in time. But I feel confident in a lot of the folks who are backing this. Coach McGee, I think it's important we get it done for you. You're not going to be here for another 10, 15, 20 years, we're hoping. So, but, going forward, again, 2 weeks ago, I wasn't very comfortable. And I'm a lot more comfortable now than I was then.
Council Boncory?
My feeling is, to answer some of Kathleen's problems, this has been going on for over a year. I mean, we've been working on it. They dug the holes in Milnes Field and in the golf course almost a year ago now. The engineering's been going on. We've spent that money. There's been a plan. There's been pictures. Those pictures have been revised. We saw them, almost a year ago with one design. That design's been changed. We've got a beautiful package a month ago with all the pictures of what it's going to look like, why it's going to look like that, how it's going to look like. It's been out there. All the vetting has been done. The council has one duty, and the only duty the council has is to put it before the voters. The council, even though I'm sure every single one of these councils, including myself, are in favor of this, we're going to help with it, we're going to work with it. The council is not supposed to do that. The council's duty is to put it to the voters in a ballot and let the voters decide yes or no. We supply the information that our administrators have put out. We have a committee that's ready to go to work on it, and we worked on it last year. Most of the councils were also, when Winthrop is worth it, and worked on it last year. But officially, the council, it's not the council's project. Okay, it's not a council project. Council's duty is to put it out to the voters. The voters say no, they say no. If they say yes, they say yes. And I'm sure most of the councils will be involved heavily in that committee. But our first duty and our main duty is to find out if the town wants it. And before we do all this other stuff, let's find out if the town wants it. And that's what we should be putting it on immediately.
Thank you, Council. Any other Council Brown?
One more thing. I find, in my opinion, that the people that I've spoken with are fairly astute and fairly familiar with the issues. I believe that someone who's going to vote against it is going to vote against it, whether it's on the ballot in 6 weeks or 10 weeks or months from now. If they're going to vote for it, they're going to vote for it. 6 weeks is plenty of, in my opinion, plenty of time to get that information out to the public for anyone who's interested. I think we could even put a little half-page ad in the Winthrop transcript with some of the engineering. I honestly believe that 6 weeks is more than enough time. People are pretty astute. I believe that their minds are already made up. Thank you.
Councilor Terry?
I agree with Councilor Boncory that I think everybody up here wants the project done and thinks it's the right thing to do. I've been on the school building committee for 6.5 years, and it took us 3.5 years to get it before the council. And we had numerous public hearings, PowerPoint presentations, timeline charts, total cost, we had reimbursement costs. It's a totally different project, but we well vetted it out. And when Jimmy and his group went out and did their dog and pony show, and we knew all the answers. Anybody would ask a question, we would know the answers, pretty much. Maybe it's me, but I don't have we got this packet about, whatever, a week ago, and it's 8.4 million, and there's some exclusions in here that aren't in here. We don't have anybody yet that has said, to my knowledge, do we have anybody that has committed funds to this project? Okay.
We have some grants from DCR that went into the Lewis Lake portion.
Right.
Which we now have learned that that some of those funds may be available to reposition towards us. But that's as we go and do more engineering design. But no, in terms of your comment, I believe you're referring to outside sources.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the plan has always been that Massport or somebody would step up and be a partner in this project, and I think that that's important for whoever's voting on that to know. We haven't heard anything about per household cost. Do you have figures on that?
Not yet.
No, okay. Something that's very important, that was very important with the schools is, and the superintendent said it the other night when presenting his budget, talking about custodians, is the maintenance after. Is this going to be a school field? Is this a town field? Who's responsible for the maintenance? Do we have maintenance plans? Have we thought about that?
There's a whole maintenance proposal that comes with any field that's selected. There's a very clear standard of procedures that have to be followed in terms of the maintenance of this field, yes.
And have we seen that?
They're part of the bidding process. It depends on the bidding that we get back. If there's a field that's proposed with a certain filament in it, and not all fields are the same. So it assumes that we bid this out and we get a responsible bidder. They will provide us with a whole host of maintenance requirements for the field.
I guess, do we know who's responsible for the cost of the maintenance? Is it the schools? Is it the town? Is this a town project?
Currently, the jurisdiction of the field is the school.
Are the schools aware of what their costs will be for this after this project is done?
They've been on the committee, they've been discussing it. There's some general awareness of a need to maintain the field, that it may take additional manpower dedicated for this field. So they have been discussing this as part of their...
Has there been any talks that the town take it over? Because the school can't, they're laying off people now.
Yeah.
So to hire more people to maintain the property, has there been talk that it would be a town field?
There's been discussions at our committee level, looking at the different options. I know Steve has talked about it coming out of the facilities department, perhaps hiring some individual who would be dedicated, such as the rink, to managing this, or perhaps looking at a combined management structure with the rink and this field together. Some of these things have been discussed, but that they haven't been formalized between the school department and the town at this point.
And what effects, if any, on the golf course? What's the infringement on the golf course?
It's a modest infringement. less impactful than originally thought. A lot of the design has been adjusted fairly recently in terms of our understanding of the engineering for the golf course itself. I think that they've been at the meetings, participating and supportive of this project. They want to see the project go forward. I think it adds an incredible value to what they're doing on their side. They know that they have some costs involved in terms of some improvements on the golf course itself.
I can't see anybody in the town, well, I guess people do what they want to do, but for the most part, you would think the merits of the project, the town should overwhelmingly be in favor of. To me, the reason why somebody's going to vote yes or no on this is the cost. That's my opinion. I mean, I could be wrong, but it's hard to argue the merits of the project. The only thing you could argue is the cost of the project and the ultimate cost to the citizens. And you know, I know we put a cap on the citizen cost on the school budget. Is that something that we could do here to maybe force our hand a little bit to go out and get our hands a little dirty and try to get people to help us out? Is there something that we could do to this to say, now I know if it goes on the ballot, there's not a dollar figure on the ballot. However, with the school project, the council voted to limit the town's exposure to $40-odd million. Is that something that the council could do on this project?
I would have to give some consideration to that request because I can't commit to something that commits a third party to paying a certain amount when they have not effectively responded to those inquiries in any material way. So I can't say to you, sure, go ahead, limit us, and that basically puts us in handcuffs relative to the proposal that we're proposing to the community. What we need to do is to be upfront with the town and say, this is the total expense of this project. That's why a debt exclusion doesn't require a number, because numbers have variability, and particularly when you bid them. Our hope is that we beat this number very well and come well below what the range is that we're proposing. We've got a 15% contingency in it built in. We hope to never have to see a 15% contingency even used. So we give a range and we say we understand all the complexities of the project. We know what the costs are going to be. We give an upside range value of 15% above what those ranges are for those costs, and then say to the community, this is really the upside of what the expense might be. So in effect, it is a ceiling, okay? But our expectation is to beat that and beat it well by going through a bidding process and, yes, deploying any resources available. If it's private sources, if it's third-party sources, or if it's even money from the DCR funds that we have available that we didn't use, we would use those. If the school results are that they result in a surplus for their project, certainly this council would have a great opportunity to hopefully transfer money into this project if that money became available to do so. So I think there are a number of things that I hope and I trust that this council will do to endeavor to keep the cost to the taxpayer as low as possible. What we need to do, though, is tell you at this juncture what's the outside range of this project going to be. And then that's what gets understood as the total of this project.
Okay. Yes. So I concur that I think 6 weeks is not enough time to do this properly and we can't even give a figure right now as to what it's going to cost per household for this. But I also feel that November is too late, and I understand what Stephen said with this certain timelines. You don't want to vote because you have to. That's the worst position to be in, and we seem to be in that an awful lot, where we vote because we have to instead of because we want to and we've really thought it out. I mean, it would be much better to have all the information in front of us and make a rational decision. But to vote on contingencies and thoughts and things that haven't happened yet and numbers we don't know yet is just not, I don't think, a prudent thing to do. But on the on the time frame that we said 18 months to 24 months, basically from construction time, Stephen, I'm sorry, just to Stephen, no.
24 months from when?
I don't know, when the shovel goes in the ground.
The project itself, drainage and field, is about an 8-month construction project. Permitting permitting gets done this year, which it should be, we can get this thing out to bid, and we can start this thing early in 17, yeah, we should, hopefully should be ready by the football season.
Now, I don't, and to get back to my point, I think November is too late. I think it's very hard to have an election in the summer because it's not fair to people who are away on vacation or whatever they are. It's, the turnout's usually very low and you want people to be able to vote. But I do see a June or an August possibility, or early September possibility. If we're not going to have permitting in place until close to the end of the year, the drainage portion of this is still going to go forward, which is the first thing that it is going to do. I know it's maybe wrong for me to compare it to the school project because it's such a different project. I know Phil just said we've seen pictures. I haven't seen a presentation, maybe I missed a meeting last year sometimes, but I haven't seen a presentation here with visuals and maps, and if it's 8 lanes or 6 lanes or 10 lanes or the infringement on the golf course, the total square footage, the amount of lighting, what's going to be done with the existing lighting that's there, if there's been any traffic study.
We did a presentation before the council December 15th.
Okay, so I might have not been at that meeting. So my point is, when we did the schools, we came in here with numbers, they did presentations, they did a timeline, and we knew exactly what it was going to cost the taxpayers. You went out and you did shows, and dog and pony shows on it. We went to the high school 3 different occasions. And I don't see us at that stage yet. I don't see a number. And it's very hard to vote if you don't see a number.
Yes, Council Cavan.
Isn't it true that initially, like you said, Jim, and I know you keep using the school, when the school was voted on and overwhelmingly passed, there was a figure that it was going to cost each household for that school. And then, due to the great work from town manager and Tim Gordon, we had an $8 million savings in interest that reflected the fact that that money that the town voted for now would cost the town $8 million less. So here we are looking for that $8 million again, which the town already voted and accepted the fact that they were willing to pay X amount of dollars. So isn't that money almost just put back into the mix and reallocated? It's not like we're adding on, another $8 million on top of the total that was originally put out there for bid, for vote with the town. And I know we saved that money, and it would have been a savings over time on people's taxes. So if we had to put it back out there again, it's almost like we're back to square one. I don't know, that's kind of how I'm looking at it, like a reallocation of that money. Is that, do I have that right, or?
Yes, you do. That's exactly right. It's not that we're putting money back into this project. We have to revote this project.
Right.
Reauthorize that money. Okay, so that's what it's required to have a vote to do it. But there are cost issues that we will always fine tune. I think what's getting a little bit misunderstood, and if I'm not clear, I apologize. There could be possibilities of outside sources coming to help us with this project. We can't wait to decide when other people decide to help us with this. We feel that it's very important that that this project be considered and debated by the community so that we can take advantage of things that we do know about. And what we do know about is that the vote will help us build a field house. We do know that we're very much heading into the permitting process, and defining the scope of our project is vitally important. We need to go once to the DEP, and when we go to them, we need to tell them, this is our project, not half the project or maybe on another aspect of the project. This is our project. So we're now sort of marshaling the forces to go forward and spend your money already to do this permitting, and we only want to do it once and do it right. So it's important, and I would encourage, if you don't think 6 weeks is necessary, then not soon far thereafter. We need to make a decision on this, because I've had a committee, and you've employed a committee to work hard on this. They've worked very diligently. They've been well represented across the community, and I think that the information, while some of it was late breaking to the council, it was necessary to get the finer points, teased out on what we're gonna do here. We can get that information out to the voters, and I think they'll be very comfortable with what the project will look like.
And just to follow up, and the voters should also know that we have up until 2017, or even after the first shovel hits that ground, to still get commitments for help financially. So I know you're working diligently, putting out the feelers, and we're all gonna be constantly doing that. So it doesn't, maybe we won't have a number or a commitment in 6 weeks, but that doesn't mean that we're not gonna have a commitment.
Just one more point. We have an outside number now with a 15% contingency. So essentially, we're just waiting to see what other assistance we can get. Once again, I think that, as Steve said, we can get the 18 football season in there.
17.
17, what?
We'd love to see the 17.
17 football season in there? Are we going to lose the 17 football season, for a couple of months? I've said my piece, thank you.
Just to reiterate some of the things that Councilor Terry said. Councilor Terry was on the School Building Assistance Committee, so he sat through every one of those meetings as they were developing the plans, and he learned the plans and he knew the plans. Not every other councilor was on that. I believe you were the only one that was on that. But we relied on what you said because you were on that committee when you came forward and said this is the time to put it out. The committee that we have in existence is now coming before us saying this is the time to put it out. They know every factor. They've seen it. They're an advisory committee to us and to the town manager, and they're coming and saying we're ready to do this. And for us not to allow them to do it seems crazy when we allowed the School Building Assistance Committee to come to us and we did exactly what they asked. The issue with other money, what corporation or what charity is going to give money to us before there's a vote? I mean, until they know the town is going to adopt it, which I'm sure the town will, they're not going to give us money. Once we say, wow, our people want this and it's 70 to 30 or 80 to 20, and it's overwhelmingly passed, then we can go and say, please help us. Our town wants it, we're ready. We can go to the state for more money, and I'm sure that'll come. I'm sure we won't spend any $1 million.
Any other comments? Save my own comments for last. No, I'm going to make comments as a council, then we'll open it up one more time for the public. My take on it is, I said this at the last meeting. First of all, we should do this project. There's no doubt about that. Number two, the committee that's been working on this has worked diligently, and it's coming along just great, I think. And I think that we've had a flurry of activity over the last month. We've just started to receive some of this information. We're looking at it. And I said the last time that I really think that the citizens of Winthrop have a history of stepping up to the plate when they understand a project and when they have all the information that they think that they need. And my concern is that if we go out early, in the next 6 weeks, that we're not going to have enough time to talk about this with the public. And I think that's real. And many people in this room, some people have sent emails to us, telling us of their support for the project. There are a lot of people who I've talked with who have expressed support for the project, but they don't know much about it. And because they don't know much about it, they don't know how they'll vote for it. And that is my concern. My concern is not about getting this done. I think there is enough time. The permitting is going to take some time. I think there's enough time for us to put this down the road a little bit in terms of the exclusion vote and still educate the public about it and get this thing passed. I'm fair that if it does not pass because we've rushed through this, we'll do it again. And we'll do it again, and we'll do it again until we get it passed. But it takes away some of the credibility, I think. So that's how I feel on this whole project. Any other comments?
I just ask, could maybe Jim Fabiano speak one more time. Can you give us an idea of how you would reach everyone in the next 6 weeks? And you said you felt as though
We do it the same way we did it the last time. The last time we had a little bit over 2 months, 2 months and maybe a week or whatever. But that project had a lot more detail to it, how much the state was gonna contribute, what the school, what we were gonna do with the old school. There was a lot more to that project. We already have the same structure of a committee. We know what to do, we know what works, we know what doesn't work, we know how to raise the money. So from a committee aspect, we feel that 6 weeks is enough time. And we said it the last time, and I think we were right. We wanted a sprint, not a marathon. You know what I mean? We wanted to have that focus, okay, we got six weeks, we got 6 weeks, get it done right. We have 2 months, 3 months, you know, people aren't as focused and, you know, you don't get the job done as well. So in our opinion, the shorter time is better. We also like the idea of having a larger showing for the vote. We think that's important because that was important the last time as well. We feel if it's a smaller vote, it's harder. It's harder for us to get more people out there. So those are some of the aspects from our opinion of why we'd rather have it on April 12th.
Thank you.
And one more thing, will you have a lot of public meetings, you'll have,
Same thing we did the last time, we'll have coffee meetings and we'll be out there in the public and the senior center and meetings like that. We'll do the same stuff that we did the last time.
Winthrop Worth signs, we still have
Same.
some, we still have stickers.
Yeah, we don't have those, but we have everything set, ready to go,
Great.
as we did the last time.
Thank you.
And just one other
Yeah,
thing,
sure.
just to be mindful, interest rates are at a historic low, and that's what benefited us, a big part of the high school, and why we save so much money. And if this interest rate, I believe was somewhere around 3.3% that we got the school on. The difference between 3.3% and 4.5%, which we know isn't an outrageous number, is an additional $1 million on this project alone on interest. So that's why we have this sense of, we need to do it now, we need to get it going, we can't keep on putting it off. And whatever money we're expecting from somebody else, we just need to get eaten up by that interest.
Good, thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, I just like to, my civic duty in this town and being exposed on the Senate, and I like to say, Mr. Fabiano, one of our great guys that work with me is Frankie, and I'm retired and he's still there. But I do want to say in civic duty, the more you postpone into another era, you're going to go into another problem. It's over here, start it now, because if you postpone it again, when it comes up again, you're going to go into another problem, another discussion, and I've seen this over and over again. And nothing's ever been solved. I've never seen that Miller Field ever it's been proposed, well, I don't know how many times, can you tell me? I don't know, it's been up, I couldn't tell you. But all I know is that you should do it now, make the decision now, I'm telling you. Don't stay in the middle of the road, wait another 3 or 4 months, come together again, another discussion, and then postpone it again. Either you do it or you don't do it. That's the way I do business. You get the information, we have what we have, and go forward. And it's for my children, my grandchildren, and I have a proposal to make. When that track is done, I'd like to call it the McGee track.
Absolutely.
That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
And I want to thank all of you here.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Dimes.
I'm going to call it after you.
You know, when I came here this evening, I was 100% for this project. My kids were in sports. I followed this town sports all the years that we lived here. All I'm saying to you tonight is, this is a very, very difficult. I heard Mr. McKenna throw all kinds of things out at you. I have yet to know what exactly they're talking about. So what I'm saying to you is you've got Little League Field, you've got the golf course, you've got a whole area down there, and I know much about it because the years that I was involved, I saw the whole field from Lewis Lake, the whole golf course covered 2 and 3 times with water. It's a major, major project that has to be done. And what I've heard here tonight, of the statements that have been made, I don't hear anything real concrete. I don't see a plan up there, and I don't see a plan over here telling me exactly what you're going to do. And all I'm asking is don't try to rush into this when 3 months beyond the time you want, you still can do the project. But let the town know, And you know, and he made a great presentation, there's no question about it. I was amazed to think that when that school board came in, it was 2.5 times, meaning $80 million project. The town of 18,000 people went ahead and said they wanted it done. So all I'm saying to you tonight is, make sure that everybody that's gonna go out and vote again, that you give the time in studying and putting together a presentation that should not be the time period you're talking about tonight, but maybe 3 or 4 months later. It's not gonna harm anybody. They're gonna play football there this fall. They played football there last fall. It is gonna be a little hardship. We've waited 40, 50 years, and we've played on that field. And I agree, it should be done, but just don't go with half figures. Unless you are comfortable as you sit back there, that you think you've got every figure that you need to know that this project can go forth, and you can tell the people of Winthrop that this is what we're gonna give you, and they're gonna come in there with a favorable vote. And all I'm asking you is, extend it 3 or 4 months beyond the time period you want to extend it now.
Thank you, Mr. Dimes. All set? Mr. Noonan?
Yeah, just to clarify, I mean, notwithstanding the school project that took place before, and understanding that is very complex, between how it's funded, between how much the town commits to it, all the technology that goes into it. It's a football field, all right? You know, I mean, at the end of the day, a lot, you know, being involved with Mr. McKenna and Mr. Cal on some of the engineering that's gone on, because of my position with the golf course as well. This is a very transparent process between all the regulatory agencies that have to be involved with this, okay? So this is an engineering project 101 in terms of what needs to happen on building up that field. What the taxpayer needs to know, what the voter needs to know, how much does it cost, and what's it to the tax base. That's it. These are the 2 things we have to answer. Pretty sure we have a couple of smart people sitting up in front of you in the next 6 weeks that can identify that number. Any delay outside of that, to me, it makes no sense. This is a football field. This is not a school. This is not a building. We're not putting in things that people haven't done in other places. So that's just my opinion.
Thank you. Any other comments? Just state your name.
Carolyn Yagan, Precinct 2. I was active in the Women's Worth Committee, so I will take an active role in the committee. But I just want to say that it's actually more than a football field, and I'm not minimizing what Mr. Newman said, but I don't want to present it to the town as a football field when it really is so much more. That field is used for a lot of activity. Mr. Driscoll, but there's lacrosse, there's youth lacrosse, there's high school sports, the track and field, not the road races that we have to benefit the community, to raise money for different charities. So I don't want to just consider it a football field. I really want to look at it for what it is, a complex that benefits the town and everything that we do together as a community and have to offer our community members. So.
Thank you. Are we ready to close the public hearing? An hour and 20 minutes? All right, hearing no other comments, I'm going to close this meeting. We have a second public hearing, which this shouldn't take as long. It's to we need to move to the voting location should this motion pass. And so I'll open up that hearing. Is there any discussion around that? This is if this motion were to pass, there's a requirement to have a voting area in a larger location, because there's going to be basically 2 ballots required due to the nature of this election, and so therefore we have to move the location. That's all this motion would be about. And we'd only, I think, vote that up if the motion passes. So, is there any other discussion? Yeah.
Well, the only thing is the council for Precinct 3, which was the precinct that would be moving from the senior center to the ferry terminal, although there is a cost associated with it, it would be nice to vote in the precinct.
Okay. Any other comments? If not, I'll close that public hearing. As I mentioned in the beginning of the meeting, there were 2 other meetings that we were going to have. Those, I think, are going to be moved, I hope, to March 10th, next Thursday. We're going to need to take a vote at the end of this meeting to not follow the charter or the rules of the council, which requires us to have a meeting every first and third Tuesday. We need to change that for a number of reasons, including that. So that'll come up, those afterwards, this vote will come up, and we will have those public hearings on the zoning issues, the FEMA map and the B&B ordinances, then, should we all vote to do that. Okay. Public comment. I hope there's no more. No. Bring it on. Keep going. Are there any comments on any topic that anyone would like to bring up? Hearing none? Okay. Go to correspondence. I have no correspondence to go to. I have not received any from anyone, so we'll pass on that. Committee reports. Finance, I don't think there was a finance committee.
Finance didn't meet.
Finance do not meet. Okay, so there's no report.
Rules and Ordinance Committee met tonight. This evening, present with myself, Council Delvento, Council Barone, Council Engman, and Town Manager Jim McKenna. There was a great deal of discussion on the Economic Development Advisory Committee. And after much discussion, a motion was made to table it until our next meeting, and it was adjourned, so there is no report other than that.
Good. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is the Town Manager's report.
Yes, good evening. I have 3 items I wish to bring to the council's attention. As we're in budget season, that has taken much of our attention the past few days and weeks. So my report is rather brief because we're, as they say, in the weeds, doing a lot of budget preparation. One thing, though, as you know, we take the opportunity in our budget process to highlight some issues of possible recommendation and concern. And one of the areas that I wish to bring up that I hope we can talk about a little bit further at the spring forum, which we need to schedule, is the issue of the water and sewer enterprise funds. What's become very apparent to myself and Mr. Calla and our CFO is that while we have 2 separate enterprise funds, the sewer enterprise and the water enterprise, they work as silos. And unfortunately, the finances don't work integrated, even though the operation of the departments are very much integrated. So the finances stay on either side, yet the operations of the department are very much, a symbiotic relationship because we use the same trucks, the same men, the same this and that, and a variety of ways, sharing resources. But it poses a challenge, particularly when we want to address an infrastructure problem. Recently, you folks voted on an emergency need to address matters on Franklin Street. Those things come up. We had the opportunity to do that through retained earnings within the fund. Unfortunately, if we had funding available in one of these enterprise funds, it doesn't become available to be transferred over to another enterprise fund. Okay, it stays within that fund and becomes just residual in that account for those purposes. And then we'd have to raise rates on the other side of the ledger to achieve the infrastructure objectives of that fund. So it's a challenge, Steve and I and Michael have discussed this issue where we bill folks, one bill, and it has 2 sides to it. It has water and sewer. Yet we don't sort of treat the finances as a combined enterprise. And that maybe it's time that we talked about combining the enterprise into one enterprise so that we have more flexibility in terms of utilizing residuals to whether they are for water or whether they are for sewer, and to have a conversation about that. I don't have a recommendation at this point, but I want to start the conversation so that we can at least have it, among ourselves.
So this would be one unified rate?
Yeah, just a single rate.
Not broken down?
Not broken down into 2 separate parts.
Yep.
So that we're not stymied to utilize whatever resources we have on either side of the ledger to pay first, so we don't have to raise the rates.
Would it be possible to get that done in this budget year process, or is there more time required for that?
It's a philosophical, we have to have a policy discussion
Mhm.
from the council on whether you feel this is a prudent thing to explore. We go back and explore it as part of our present presentation, and then propose a unified budget that incorporates both sides of the sewer and water as one budget.
Just a quick question, maybe, Mike, do you have the balances in the reserve accounts for the water and sewer?
Yes, I was anticipating that. So the sewer has a balance of retained earnings of $745,077. The water only has a balance of $446, which is net of the $175,000. So that $175 that was approved at, I guess that was 2 meetings prior, has already been deducted from that total.
Okay. Which would be one of the big advantages.
Yes.
So we're not looking for a big discussion tonight, just to want to float the balloon, see if it gets shot down, or see if it has legs, and if you want to discuss it among yourselves, and then talk about it at the forum.
I know I present from the Citizens Finance Committee perspective, and as well as the Finance Commission, has been debated for years, I've discussed for years. I think it's time to think about that. I think it'd be less confusing to citizens to receive a unified bill and not try to figure out why is my water this, my sewer this, and I think it's worth a look.
To that end, I have a report from the MWRA on water and sewer rates and a survey of all the communities. And if you're interested in thinking about this issue and want to see what other communities are doing, feel free to ask me for a copy of this, and I'll make one available to you, okay? But it just basically will give you a little more information.
It's a
about what other
PDF,
communities-
right?
We can get a PDF, I think, yeah.
Is that on the MWRA
Yeah.
website?
Yeah, it's the advisory board report.
So no, but is it on their website, or do you
On
know?
the advisory boards.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you just grab it from there. Thank you.
The second issue that I'd like to talk about tonight is there is progress being made on the Kennedy Drive engineering analysis. You folks hired Jim D'Angelo from D'Angelo Engineering to take a look at and peer review a proposal for Kennedy Drive to see what corrective actions we can take to improve the traffic flow at Kennedy Drive and what modifications that Mr. D'Angelo would propose. He did meet with the police chief, fire chief, myself, Steve Calla, John Macero, and Mr. Driscoll was there, President Driscoll. So I think it was a very collaborative meeting. A lot of great ideas were put forth, and this is a first iteration. Some thoughts and input were taken by the engineer, and he'll come back with a modified plan and then present it to the council, hopefully, with some thoughts about...
Looks good, but what happened to right field is going to...
So that's more to come on that, okay? But it's well underway, and you'll be getting more information on that in the next few weeks.
Council President?
Yes.
If I may, if you could ask Mr. D'Angelo to give some thought to emergency egress. We as a council had expressed our will for emergency egress there, and I still feel that some thought and consideration should be given to that end. And report back to us on that, please. Thank you.
I think we can ask Mr. D'Angelo his thoughts on that. It's an interesting idea. I think this is really sort of an immediate type of project to resolve the traffic issues of the cars coming into Fort Banks and leaving. And I don't know if he could incorporate an additional thing into his analysis. I mean, we could ask him.
Okay.
I think that'd be fine.
Certainly. And then, I believe, did you want to make a mention of any, yes, you did, you had an issue that you wanted to talk about.
Yes.
Dog fees.
So included within the packet, there was a brief memo that I had put together on a proposal. At the prior council meeting, the Citizens for a Dog Park in Winthrop committee made a presentation about there being a dog park in Winthrop, which on a personal note, I am a dog owner. I love dog parks. It's fantastic. I think Winthrop absolutely should have one, so I completely support it. But there is the question of how it would be funded and maintained, and going forward, who would be responsible for it. So what I would propose is some amendments to the dog licensing fee. Change the timing so that it was not due April 1st, expiring on March 31st, which is just off cycle of everything, and make it on a fiscal year or a calendar year basis, as well as increasing the fee and creating a revolving fund that would take the revenues from the dog license fees, would use that money to maintain the field and possibly fund a portion of the animal control officer. That way we're funding it, we're making sure that it is maintained to the highest standards of quality, everything is addressed appropriately, and we're providing a benefit to the dog owners in exchange for the additional fee.
Yeah, Council Cal.
I thought we changed that. I thought we changed everything to the fiscal year. I know we did with the parking permits and things like that.
Yeah, well, our fees are now considered part of our fiscal
But-
planning
okay.
purposes,
So-
but it may be articulated in the ordinance
It's
still as
the
the
specific due date of the fee is that the licenses are valid from April 1st to March 31st, which is a holdover from the prior state legislation that it was specified there, but then several years ago that provision was removed for it, and it just hasn't been updated in our books.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
That concludes our report for the night.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. School department update. There was a lengthy school department meeting this past 2 Mondays ago, actually. And it was televised, so I won't go through all of it, but most of the meeting was devoted to the first presentation of the school budget by Superintendent Superintendent Maceros, excuse me. And so from my perspective, the presentation of the budget was excellent. You could tell how much work went into that in terms of all of the people, principals, the superintendent, everybody. It was a really good job. It's still a tough number. They need $745,000 more. It represents a 4% increase over last year. Historically, over the last many years, they've probably received 2 or 3% or something in that area, in that range. It's a detailed budget. This was a tough year for them in terms of they have a new school operating, a school is closing, so to try to come up with cost numbers and staffing that's appropriate, it was difficult, but they put a lot of work into that, and there'll be a lot more discussion to come. It was the first presentation. There's a public meeting this Monday, the 7th, I think it is. It's a public hearing at the school committee meeting on this budget, so it'll be an opportunity for all of the citizens of the town to come and weigh in on that. So that's the update from the school department. Okay, so we're under old business. Now we're going to vote first on the matter that we just had the public hearing on. So I'm going to once again read the motion, and then we'll take a roll call vote on this. So the motion is, shall the town of Winthrop be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bond issued in order to pay the balance of the costs of the Millerfield-Lewis Lake project, including the tie gate improvements, dredging expansion, and storm water storage within the drainage area of Lewis Lake, and further including removal of existing facilities and the design, permitting, construction, and equipping of new track and field-related facilities at Millerfield, including all incidental and related costs. So that is a motion. Council Rowan offered that motion. So need to be a second?
Second. We was seconded last time.
Oh, we don't need to do it again?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because we.
Then I think we just need to, we need to vote on that. So we're going to do a roll call vote. So Councilor Engman?
No.
Councilor Calla?
Yes.
Councilor Sanford?
Yes.
Councilor Boncory?
Yes.
Councilor Varone?
Yes.
Council Biagian,
No.
Council Del Vento,
Yes.
Vice President Lettieri,
No.
and President Driscoll, I'm voting no. So the motion does not pass. It requires a 2/3 vote. So,
Vote is 5-4.
5-4. That, I think, precludes us from having to vote on the second matter under old business, which is moving the precinct 3 voting location. Next, under new business, we have several financial proposals. I'm going to just read them, and I think we'll probably refer these to the Finance Committee. The first motion is a motion to move that the council authorize and appropriate the amount of $60,000 of Parks and Recreation Retained Earnings Fund 671 for the purpose of completing Parks and Recreation programming and associated salaries for fiscal year 16, or take any other action relative thereto.
Motion to refer.
Motion to refer, Councilor Terry, seconded by Councilor Sanford.
Do we need to advertise, Council?
We need to advertise.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I'm going to ask my illustrious Finance Council helpers, my other members, I'm not going to be here for next meeting, so if I do have a 6:30 meeting scheduled for the police item from last week. I don't know if you guys want to get together and schedule something on the 10th, work it out with Denise.
Is there sufficient time? There isn't sufficient time for...
Oh, not for advertising, but they can have, if you want to have a meeting.
Okay.
They just run the advertising. I forgot it was only 1 week, not 2.
No, you don't have to. You don't need to. One 7-day advertisement.
It's going to be in the paper tomorrow.
It's not a zoning.
I'm sorry.
It's not zoning, it's not required to. It looks like only 1 week.
It would have to be in tomorrow's paper to be, it would have to be in the Lynn item.
This would be to have a meeting of the Finance Committee next Thursday evening at 6:30?
No.
No,
It's
it's,
Tuesday before the special meeting.
yeah, it would be Thursday.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
next
we'll do
Thursday.
That's
a week
like
from
the
today.
10th, Thursday.
Yeah.
Is that's...
You can advertise it.
If you guys can have, I won't be here to, if you guys want to have the finance meeting, feel free to do it.
Does this require a public hearing?
Yes.
Yeah, it's over 20.
Then I don't think, is there time to do that before Thursday? The paper comes out on Thursday. Is that a
You
sufficient?
said
No,
we could get
not
it
this
in
one.
another
We
one.
would get it in the line item. If we have an issue that we have to, actually, you know what?
I don't think we can do it next week, and then I think we're going to end up...
I think you can, you don't think you can call tomorrow morning before 11 and get it?
We can call it.
Yes,
Tomorrow morning.
Give it a shot, I mean.
you can.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So we can,
You can launch it before 11
o'clock.
Yeah,
Okay.
should be fine.
We can talk to Denise about
What
that.
time do you want? What do you for the 10th?
Yeah. Okay.
Engine up language and call it in. And if they can advertise it on
No, it's the
Thursday.
transcript, see if they
Oh,
can-
it'll be okay. We have announcements, so-
All right, good.
Yeah,
So,
that's fine.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
And we'll post a council meeting, finance meeting for the 10th at 6:30 in council chambers.
6:30?
Yeah,
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock in council
It's
chambers.
the president. We should have an extra room.
Okay. The next motion is a motion to move that the town council authorize and appropriate the amount of $30,000 from Rink Retained Earnings Fund 672 for the purpose of continued rink repairs and maintenance of equipment, as well as operating costs due to the extended operating season, or take any other action relative thereto.
Motion to refer.
Second?
Second.
Second.
Okay.
Same matter to be advertised.
Yep. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. The next matter is that the next motion, I'm sorry, to move that the town council appropriate $10,000 of available free cash for the dog park plan design and permitting, or take any other action relative thereto.
Motion to
Mr.
refer.
President, I got a little technical question. Didn't we already move all the free cash out into
No.
stabilizations? Oh, we left some of it
Yes,
available? Okay, I just wanted to make sure. All right,
The balance.
well, we have enough to move it, okay.
More than.
It's been motioned, second? Second? Okay. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay, the next matter is transfer, a motion to move that the town council vote to transfer $4,000 from Fund 965, Building Stabilization to the General Fund Special Article for Emergency Boiler Repairs at the Town Hall, or take any other action relative thereto. This requires a roll call vote because it's funds moving out of the stabilization fund.
I'd like to move this tonight if we can.
Yes. So, is there a second? On moving this evening?
Second.
Second, okay. I'm going to call the roll. Councilor Inman?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Callis?
Yes.
Councilor Sanford?
Yes.
Councilor Boncory?
Yes.
Councilor Barone?
Yes.
Councilor Biagi?
Yes.
Councilor Galvento?
Yes.
Vice President Lettieri?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. Okay. And the next motion is to waive the rules with respect to our meetings. So we, again, this is a proposal to have a meeting next Thursday, the 10th of, two Thursdays from now, the 10th of March. We really need to get some things done. The FEMA map regulations come into enactment. They're enacted as of, I think, March 16th. And so we need to, as a council, vote that. That's one of the reasons we need to have that meeting. We also have a number of councilors who won't be available on March 15th meeting. So this motion is going to be to waive the rules for the first and third Tuesdays and to have a meeting, and a vote to have a meeting next Thursday, Thursday, March 10th. Maybe that's too much. I could have read it. It's a lot shorter. The council, this is the motion that the council suspend the council rules and schedule the next town council meeting for March 2016 to be held on March 10th, or take any other action relative thereto. Have a motion?
Motion.
Motion. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No.
No.
No? Okay.
Tradition.
Yeah, it's,
All right. Everything. Okay. I'm gonna have to ask Denise to watch this on TV to make sure I got all these votes right. Okay, good. There's another public comment section. Does anybody from the public have any other comments? If not, the last thing is public relations meetings. We have the meetings that we just talked about, the FEMA floodplain and the bed and breakfast transient lodging will be discussed, and will be a public hearing at the March 10th meeting. We also, at that council meeting, will vote on the movement of $140,000 from the manager's budget to the police personnel relative to contract settlement. And that is all we have, unless anyone else has any other things to discuss. Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
third.
Aye.